Hello there. Dr. Bill Crawford here, psychologist, speaker, author of 8 books, host of 2 PBS specials. And today I want to talk a little bit about what I call the 3 essential elements of virtual presentations, given that's what we're doing today. I want you to know I love in-person presentations. I love to travel. I love to connect with the audience, love the energy. But around mid-March, we all kind of recognize that isn't going to be an option for a while. So I decided, okay, if I'm going to do the virtual, I want to do it in a way that feels really good to me. So these are what I call my essential 3 elements of successful virtual presentations. So started around mid-March, it's around almost at the end of June now. I've done about 40 of these, and they have been very successful. So I want to share what I've learned. If you're a new speaker, or if you're looking to hire a speaker, how do you make sure that the person's going to be good and be able to deliver a presentation that's going to have the impact that you want? By the way, if you have any questions about anything I talk about today, feel free to message me on LinkedIn or go to my website, send me an email. I'll be happy to give you any of my thoughts on all the details of a lot of things I'm talking about. So what I've done is I've divided the 3 elements into setup, content, and delivery. In terms of setup, you got to have a place to do it. I have chosen a room that doesn't have a window or that I have closed the blinds because I don't want the different temperatures of the sun, or sometimes I'm doing a training very early in the morning where there is no sun, to affect the lighting. So what I've done is I've chosen a room that doesn't have a window. The lighting is basically what's called daylight light, and it's coming from fluorescence. I happen to have some around that my son Christopher used in his video shooting. I've got them pointing toward the wall though. They're not pointing at me because I don't want that glare. If you don't want to go to Amazon and spend about $200 on lighting, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and just get some fluorescent lights that you see hanging in garages. You want to face them away from you and make sure you're getting daylight light. In terms of the sound, I have tried a lot of different mics, and what I have found is a wired lapel mic seems to work best for me. One of the reasons is I'm going to get up and walk around in a minute, so just having a stationary mic really doesn't serve my purposes. And I've tried a wireless lapel mic, and the ones that I had just didn't produce the sound I want. I understand you can get a Shure $300 wireless lapel on Amazon, and I'm sure that's going to sound great. I just didn't want to spend $300 on a mic. So this wired lapel cost about 20 bucks from Audio-Technica and has a 20-foot cord to it. So I can use it. It's plugged into my audio input on my MacBook Pro, and it gets pretty decent sound. Hopefully it's sounding good to you. In terms of the connection, I encourage you to create what's called an Ethernet connection. You know, you can use Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi can be kind of iffy and spotty. When you plug a Ethernet connection into your router, it is wired. I went on Amazon and found a 50-foot Ethernet cord that's running out of this studio back around to my router in another room. So that really kind of gives me that consistent quality Zoom experience. I do like to use Zoom because it gives me more options, especially in terms of how the viewer can view the presentation. Because most of the software that people use today is set up for meetings. So when you share a screen, the slides are really big, and you're kind of this little tiny person at in a little box, right? Not exactly what we're looking for in terms of a great virtual presentation. With Zoom, you can actually have people do what's called side by side. Here is an example of what this looks like. You go up to virtual options, you go to side by side, and you can kind of grab a bar and move it to the point where you and your slides are about even. And I like this for the most of my presentations. What I will do from time to time, however, is to go from sharing the screen back to a full screen, because I really want to give people as much of an experience as possible. Background. I spent about a day and a half creating this background. This is not a virtual background, it is a real background. And I wanted to create something that had people feeling comfortable and yet kind of gave them a sense of maybe I know what I'm doing. So that's where the books and the lighting is all about. But I wanted that to look that way so that people felt comfortable in this room, in this environment with me. What else? Camera. Of course, you don't want to use your camera that is on your computer. It's just really not set up to deliver the kind of quality that you want. My friend Dean Minuto has some wonderful information on what he calls unconscious biases. that people see things and they automatically make a determination about whether or not they trust you, whether or not they value what you're saying. In fact, there is a concept in psychology called the halo effect. So when people see things they like or feel are attractive or professional, they automatically give you more credibility, and they listen to you in a way that if the background was weird or the sound was weird or the Wi-Fi was spotty or the lighting was off, then that would in some ways diminish from that. So I wanted to do everything I could do in a setup to make sure all that works. Content. A lot of speakers rely on stories and kind of feel-good stories to really make an impact, and those are wonderful. You can really make a wonderful impact in an in-person presentation with those stories. With virtual, that's a little harder because you don't have that initial connection. So what I encourage you to make sure you're doing is bringing them actionable information they can use immediately, and that it's modular, because different people are going to want you to do different types and different lengths of presentations. I normally do about a 3.5 hour presentation to my Vistage meetings and a lot of other trainings. I can still do that, and that works really fine. So it doesn't have to be shorter. However, for people who want shorter, you want to make sure that your information is modular. So that's where my life from the top of the mind philosophy comes in. This is a book I've written. It's the underlying of all of my presentations, and it allows me to talk about the neuroscience of clarity, confidence, creativity, how to shift from this lower reactive brain to the more purposeful, responsive upper 80% of the brain. Gives them a model that actually spells brain that shows them how to do that. So the content needs to be something that people see as valuable immediately and something they can identify with without necessarily having a feel-good story. I do use stories in my presentations, but I don't rely on them as much as another speaker might. Delivery. If you're not sitting in one place doing a presentation live, I'm going to encourage you to alter that and change that and move around if indeed you're doing a virtual presentation. So when I'm doing my virtual presentation, I talk about something that I do in my in-person presentations where there is a prop that I always use, and I didn't want that to go away when I use it in virtual. Obviously, a flip chart. And on this flip chart, what I've done is I've gathered information from the group in advance about what are the situations that trigger them. This happens to be a workshop on dealing with difficult people. So I asked the participants in advance, what are the kind of people that trigger your stress? Well, they say people who are stubborn or rude or argumentative or demanding or insensitive, judgmental, unreasonable. So what I'm now working with is their experience. So now I'm not kind of telling them, this is what happens to you. They're telling me, this is what happens to you. There is a great quote from a gentleman, a trainer by the name of Bob Pike. He says, people don't argue with their own data. So I like to gather this data in advance. So, okay, great. So when we're dealing with these difficult people, how have we found ourselves reacting in the past? Well, gosh, we got stressed and frustrated and angry and annoyed and worried and start to doubt ourselves, confused, lose focus, lose sleep, etc. Drives us crazy. So now I have what I call real life the what. Whenever I'm doing a presentation, I want to talk about new information on the what, the why, and the how. So rather than this being these people make me feel this way, which is a lot of how we've experienced in the past, I talk about how this triggers this response. And because we don't like this, we go over here and try to change whatever made us feel that way. Unfortunately, when you try to change difficult people, have you noticed they don't say thank you for sharing? So that triggers another reaction, which is more problematic because now there's a sense of frustration or powerlessness, which makes the original trigger seem worse, which triggers another reaction and worse, reaction and worse, reaction and worse. And we get caught in what I call a cycle of stress, frustration. And I talk about this as the what. It's not just that we get triggered, but that we get caught in a cycle. And so what I want to do is help people break the cycle. So I say, okay, if we don't want to feel angry, stressed, frustrated, if we're coming from this upper 80% of the brain, where we are choosing qualities or characteristics that allow us to be successful, what would those qualities and characteristics be? And so I've gotten this information from the organization, and they say, well, gosh, I want to be more confident, calm, creative, optimistic, clear, authentic, kind, influential, resilient, flexible, productive, in control, empathetic. Great. So now we know what we're going for, but remember, this is their data. So I say, okay, folks, if we're going to break the cycle, let's break the cycle. So how valuable would it be if going forward, after learning what I'm going to teach you today, you, instead of reacting this way, could respond like this? So this is a visual that I do in all of my presentations, and I didn't want to lose it doing virtual. Then I can come right back here, sit down, talk about what it's like to be caught in the cycle and what it's like to be able to access these qualities and characteristics. And I can bring neuroscience to this process in a way that allows me to engage people. So what I'm encouraging you to think about, if you found this valuable, if you're a new speaker, and again, if you want to know anything about what I'm doing, feel free to email me or message me on LinkedIn. If you're hiring a speaker, make sure that they have some idea of the setup and the content and the way of delivering material that has been successful virtually, because it's not the same, as we all know, as an in-person presentation. My hope is we're going to all get through this, and there's going to come a time in the future where they're all in-person presentations. But if not, if this is now kind of a part of what we're going to be doing going forward, either totally or sometimes in part of it, I want to make sure I'm doing it in a way that is meaningful and helpful to you. Hope you found this valuable. I love bringing you these videos. By the way, I post one of my videos each week on YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and iTunes. So if you find these valuables, feel free to check it out. And if you would like me to do something for your organization, virtually for the moment, maybe in person later on, feel free to contact me. You can just go to my website, billcrawfordphd.com, hit the contact button, let me know what you're interested in. Love to talk with you about that. In the meantime, here's to you, bringing more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.